Good morning, Lance. Let me see if I can find some good light. That's a beautiful morning here in Topeka. You know, fall is definitely one of the reasons we live in Kansas. Fall and spring are a couple of the most beautiful months. So for those of you that know Lance and have read any of Lance's works, should know that I'm actually a character from one of Lance's books, In the Flesh. So you got to buy his books and read them and then try to figure out, okay, who's this guy? Well, anyway, I'm on the Shunga. Charlie Wilson's running around here somewhere. We already took the majority of our walk. But today, going back to the book, which I think I'm still leaning on the title right now, The Lawyer's Lawyer, but Not the Dad's Dad. I want to talk about addiction this morning. Addiction and entrepreneurs and parents and kind of your professional life and how your addictions and your professional life kind of go with each other, and maybe how you can get addicted. Maybe one of your addictions is your professional life. And you know, I must say that my dad's addiction to being a good lawyer, I mean, it really paid off for his clients. So my dad was, his degree was in tax law. In fact, I think one of his claim to fame, he was the first guy in Kansas with a master's degree in tax from New York University. Then Dad also went ahead and got PhD in tax. And I think it was when Reagan, put out the big, huge stack of tax laws, Dad kind of started thinking, holy crap, I think my future as a lawyer might be kind of coming to an end. You know, just trying to keep up with all the new laws. I think Dad actually made a ton of money for selling his recordings that he had made on all the seminars that he had attended, trying to keep up. And I think that's actually how Dad retired, you know, because he got nervous of his ability to be able to take care of his clients, because, you know, his clients are what help keep an addict their ass out of a sling. And it's kind of amazing how certain clients will not worry about certain components if you show up. You know, it's like let's take the old Babe Ruth. You know, Babe Ruth wasn't a bastion of diplomacy or manners, and never could get into management because of his style. But man, that boy, he could perform. And I kind of think that's, and I'm kind of a little, you know, I definitely fall under kind of the, my clients have tolerated a lot of shit from me, or maybe they didn't know all the stories, but you know, when it comes to getting real estate deals done and performing and showing up, you know, half a win and just showing up, right? That's what Babe used to say. And, you know, a really good addict is gonna show up because we gotta have our source of income to, you know, get what we want. But and sometimes even our profession provides what we want, like, you know, like the rock stars, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, baby. But so if you can imagine me with an unlimited expense account with really no oversight, no supervision, to say, you know, trust me, I had a pretty good time working for the mall developer that I worked for. But I performed. I made a lot of deals. So, back to Dad. You know, Dad threw himself in his work. You know, Dad's addiction to being the lawyer's lawyer was really interesting. And what I really find interesting being back in Topeka, here's Charlie Wilson. There he is, real quick. One thing I find interesting about being in Topeka, and it's benefited me a lot, is a lot of young lawyers, or a lot of lawyers, they're not young today, but they'd come up to me and say, you know, your dad really was good to me as a young lawyer. Pointed me in the right direction, did the right thing. In fact, I can tell you, one of my most interesting clients, and I'd say dear friends, well, a good friend is Frank Sabatini. Frank was one of the first franchisees of Pizza Hut. You know, he really bailed Dick Hassert out of the first pizza pub, and then he threw his heart into growing Pizza Huts. But Frank wasn't a part of the law firm, but he rented an office in the law firm, and he would carry Harry Calmary's briefcase to Washington. Harry Calmary was my dad's senior law partner. Harry was known for writing the GI Bill, really the original first draft, negotiating the Philippine Treaty. And probably more importantly, Harry was important to my dad because he took my dad in after my dad got his ass kicked out of his dad's law firm. My dad got his ass kicked out of my grandfather's law firm for my dad's behavior. And it's kind of just where the judge drew the line. I mean, it was scandalous, I guess. My dad and a friend of his, I'm not going to name the guy who I think it was until I verified. Like, you know, because I could probably for sure talk to the kids, which is going to be when I get a little more time. I definitely got my dad's old Rolodex, but you know, this town is full of people that my dad knew. You know, and I was just talking to a good friend, a dear friend, Jeff Newcomer. And I think Jeff might even probably talk a little bit about his addictions, but there are people that my dad changed their life just by being a lawyer, by some of the deals he made. So my dad day to day was more of a mergers and acquisition guy than he really was a tax lawyer. But, you know, because like any good entrepreneur, what you're trained to do is sometimes boring. It's more fun trying to, you know, doing other things. Like, really, at the end of the day, when it comes down to what Henry McClure's good at, I'm a good leasing guy. You know, writing leases, finding tenants, but it's using the business acumen to get tenants for shopping centers is what's helped me with other entrepreneurial ventures and also just being a better real estate guy. But Dad had some select clients, and in fact, kind of sometimes I think a Dad's practice and my real estate practice are somewhat similar, because you know, all you got to do is have a few very, very rich clients, and have an understanding with them, and you can grow from that. So one of my dad's best clients here in Topeka was a gentleman named Oscar Stauffer, and Dad took a one newspaper guy and grew it into, I think, 22 newspapers, 15 AM FM radio stations, and 5 TV stations. And Dad wrote all the contracts. And in another video in the future, I will show you one of Dad's contracts. And I regress back to Dad getting his ass kicked out of a law firm and Harry Comrie taking him in. You know, and I think what happened, Dad was out down in Wichita with a buddy of his who's an attorney, and man, they got hammered and there was some sort of mess, and I think the crux of it, there was a car wreck, and both these guys are married, and some young lady got killed. And you know, the car wreck was an accident, the death was an accident. No, you know, nobody went to jail. It was obvious that nobody, I mean, there wasn't nobody really had blood on their hands, other than, man, it just looked terrible. You know, what are these guys out with this lady and these married guys and drunk and driving around? And you know, this book is not gonna, we're gonna be open. We're gonna talk about stuff, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, facing your problems and owning them are the only way you grow. So, you know, the other day, and Lance, I think Lance even met my half-brother. And I think actually, Lance, your comments after dinner up at, I think we're at Flagstaff House in Colorado, up outside Boulder. Yeah, it was. And you go, well, he ain't no Henry McClure. I've always loved my little brother. But as it relates to family, my little brother, half-brother, never really could understand that Dad had a whole nother life prior to him. Because all Matt knew was his relationship with Dad and his mom, Shirley, who stayed married the whole time. You know, so Matt couldn't, and you know, Matt didn't have room in his life really so much for Dad having another family prior to you know, his existence. And you know, one thing I admire about my little brother Matt, and it, like, his stock went way up after I took care of my mom, and understanding, you know, how fucking difficult it is to be a caretaker. You know, Matt did that for Dad. But Matt had to do it for Dad because Dad bailed Matt out of every fucking problem he ever had. You know, and I'm telling you, we've all been shrouded with legal problems. And, you know, I don't think this book is so much an expose on my little brother. But, and, you know, and Matt, I'd asked him to contribute into this book. And he goes, you know, those memories are my memories. And he said it really curtly. And he said it in a fashion, and I said, motherfucker, you know. I was really pissed at him, and I said, you know, Matt, that's like the only thread that you and I have that holds us together, which, you know, my little brother and I we've gone round and round over stuff. You know, I had to kick his ass out of my house because he didn't do what he said he was going to do. He, you know, hey, look, let me at least get set up back here, and you know, I'm gonna get a job, jump on everything, and shit, he was sitting at the dining room table comatose. Yeah, that was a difficult time. You know, Mom had just died, and you know, and kind of where my heart was open to Matt was that, God, after what you did for Dad, I understand it. I see what you did. Because doing it for Mom was difficult. I got to tell you what, if anybody listening to this you got older parents, don't build the addition on your house. Don't go buy a house that's got extra, you know, unless you got servants today, if you've got a butler that can butler, and you got a maid, and you might as well better fucking go hire a driver, because you'll be insane. Don't bring your parents into your house. Don't go move into your parents' house. You got to use every bit of energy that you got and money to put them in a retirement home. Put them in a home where professionals can take care of them. You know, my little brother, fucking, I could choke him over, you know, he wanted to make a big deal about my dad dying because of the oxygen falling off of him, and trying to blame the home that he was in, you know, run by top professionals. And it's like, okay, hey, I got a second here. You're gonna die no matter what. And quite frankly, if you don't understand that you're gonna die and you're watching this, just turn this off. But anyway, you know, so like, because we're not getting out of this thing alive. And kind of what this book about is now, for me, it's like, you know, it's really time to start living. I'm right now having the opportunity to live a whole new life. I'm just now, you know, everything that Mason Dana taught me at the Macerich Company, it's just almost like I'm getting to use now. It's set in, it's coming to fruition, and I'm maturing enough to the point where I can take those good words of advice, the good example that they live. You know, for one thing, Mason Dana lived by example. Treat people the way you want to be treated. You know, never feel ashamed about doing business in a business-like manner. And some of these business acumens were also my dad's. You know, my dad, when it came to being a lawyer, was the utmost professional. You know, and there's a lot of times I used to say, man, I do not want to be like my dad. But then I look back at some of Dad's writings, just his handwriting. My dad was meticulous. He was a hell of a writer. He was just so smart. He was an English major, a history major, and man, did he love the law. So I've bounced around a lot. I'm at the 18-minute mark. I know we're supposed to do this in little 15-minute bites, but, well, no, Lance said write for 15 minutes a day, but, you know, since my epiphany, I have not been able to sit down for 15 minutes. I just got all this energy. Actually, I think we've got enough light that I'm going to I want to start heading home. And sometimes when I'm moving, I can collect my thoughts a little, but the dad's dad, not the dad's dad, but the lawyer's lawyer, addiction. So Dad's addiction to his profession is what kind of always brought Dad back to reality after some of his escapades. So, and I'm guilty of it. I am goddamn guilty of it. You know, I've done a lot of things in life that, you know, I've owned, but hell, even Lance even over time, you know, used to have talks like Uncle Jed to Jethro, you know, about my drinking and carrying on. But, you know, just get some deals done, you know, work hard, smile a lot, say you're sorry. That can get an addict, you know, out of work or out of trouble. So I've been studying some of addictions, and Dad's addiction to alcohol screwed him. And let's talk about this. This is kind of interesting too. How an addict will use up until the point of death almost. So Dad's diabetes got, you know, Dad was good at quitting. A friend of mine, I gotta find this out. It's called, his name's Billy Pryor. A fraternity brother of mine, a really great guy, Earl. He gave me I've got it somewhere. It's called Quitters Inc. You know, people that are good at quitting, but I always have like that joke. I don't care who you are, it's funny. AA's for quitters. Every drunk likes that joke. A bunch of quitters, God. But trying to stay on task here about addiction and my dad. Well, I tell you one thing my dad was. He was always addicted to my mom. And it was a terrible divorce. And I think I talked about in my spite comments that you know, a lot of things were done due to spite in divorces. But my dad's addiction to alcohol was stronger than my dad's love for my mom. Because I really truly think, and Mom said it, if Bob could have just quit drinking and focused and towed the line, he would have, you know, he'd have made a great husband. So, I mean, and back to my dad and his running buddy and best friend, John Breyer, who ultimately ended up being my stepdad. You know, John Breyer was probably a better drunk because he'd go home after a while and Dad wanted to stay out, keep running. So it was two guys doing the exact same thing up to a point. So John Breyer was a better functioning alcoholic than my stepdad because he'd get home earlier. And, you know, my stepdad always used to say to me, you know, if you can't get it done by midnight, you just might as well come home and start over. You know, nothing good happens after that. It's like, think of the things that have happened in your life after midnight when you're hammered or stoned, you know? What's on your mind? But, I feel like I've bounced across the board a lot. And I probably have attention deficit disorder, but I just don't want to go to the doctor for it yet. The doctor's loving me though lately. Down 100 pounds. I've gone from a triple X to a large shirt, 14 inches off my waist. Getting morning, you know, having a healthy lifestyle, exercising, eating right. Here come some bikes. Good morning. morning. Some goofy fucking hats. I mean, who really wants to get up and put on a uniform to ride a bike? All right, we're putting on a scuba suit. And a helmet. Now I can go ride a bike. All right, I think on that note, addiction, professional life, personal life. And then when it comes down to your own life. And I think when my dad's diabetes got to the point where he was going to lose his own life, and he had the fucking balls to quit drinking. And that's a shame. You know, you got to put your own life first in the beginning, and then the rest of it falls into place. Instead of waiting until the final hour. So like the old joke, who wants to be 91? The guy that's 90. Well, I want to be 110. And you know I'm going to live a long time because the good die young. But I want to learn from my dad's mistakes. You know, when I found out I was type 2 diabetic, I wanted to change my life. I didn't want to lose my vision. You know, I didn't want to have all the problems wrapped around diabetes. I saw what it did to my dad. I just don't need alcohol that bad. I don't need sugar. You know, read a sugar detox book. Detoxing yourself from sugar, because the biggest drugs today are from the processed foods makers, packers, whatever, you know, the fast food industry and soft drinks. You know, addicts aren't just us that like to use drugs. I was laughing. I was telling somebody the other day. I said, well, I've almost got my weight down to a manageable level where I can pick up my cocaine habit again without fear of having a heart attack. Well, you know, read what Sigmund Freud wrote about cocaine.